Okay. Um, for those of you in the audience and watching, Mrs. Jacobson had a family commitment tonight, so will not be here in person, but will be joining us later in the meeting virtually. So we'll call the regular meeting of the Board of Education on October 24th to order. Present is Mrs. Rotelli, Mrs. Vitale, Mrs. Gerber, Mrs. Guernsey, myself, Nick Asa, Superintendent Testani, Jen Maxon-Canelli, and Jeff Peterson. And Mrs. Kelly will be joining us a little late tonight. If we could all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and have our student reps lead us, please. So with that, we'll start with student reports, Fairfield Ludlow, Ward, and Walter Fitzgerald.
Hi, how are you guys tonight? My name is Agatha. I'm in 12th grade, and I'm going to tell you guys a little bit more about what's going on at Ludlow. So the class of 1973 is going to have their 50th reunion, which is very exciting. And very generously, the original Ludlow Rogers sign has been donated by an alumni. And also very exciting, the Fight for Ludlow Foundation is having their first annual fundraiser for charities that seek to better our Fairfield community. Prior to the Thanksgiving game, each school will sell t-shirts and sweatshirts with the same logo in different colors, as organized collaboratively by the class presidents and each school, in a show of solidarity and union. This year, the money will go to Kevin's Afterglow to teach children and their parents kindness, empathy, and more education on the importance of mental health. Also, sales will be electronic from the 30th to the 31st, and I will send you guys a link online through the email so you guys can check it out. It's for a very good cause. And we also have senior nights. Field hockey, volleyball, cross country, soccer, football, swimming was today, cheerleading, and dance. For the PSA, the College Board issue delayed a number of students to have access to the test. However, we persevered, and there was only a 1 hour delay, so only a few students had to stay back. All students were able to complete the test. And Wednesday, the 25th, the 9th grade election is going to be open for office. You never really know how those are going to go, so I'm excited to see how they end up. And Thursday, the 26th, there will be a meeting with junior parents, a more casual coffee information session so they can ask questions at 9:30 with Dr. Hatzis. The red and white for seniors, the dance has been sent out, and the county assembly for junior dance tickets have also been handed out. So it's exciting to see how people dress up, and it's a nice breakaway from the stress of college admission, especially since the dance tends to be right after you're done with the whole process and you're just stressed about the deliberation of who's going to accept you and, you know, the whole stressful part of it. Thank you so much. Have a nice evening.
Good evening, my name is Alexandra, and I'll be representing Fairfield Ward High School as a senior. So what's been going on at Ward? We are expecting our pep rally on Friday, and we're excited to celebrate our fall student athletes on the football field. Students are encouraged to wear black and pink shirts in support of breast cancer awareness.
Okay, hello, my name is Jay Ree, and I'm also representing Fairfield Ward High School. So yesterday, Monday, we had a 15-minute homeroom where we facilitated a No Place for Hate banner signing activity. It was an opportunity for students and staff to make a commitment to challenge bullying, mean-spirited behavior, and bias.
Yesterday, our DECA leadership team attended the CT Fall Conference, where we got to do a lot of team bonding within our leadership team, role play practice for nationals and states, which is coming up in March. exam preparation, and we also networked with over 2,000 students all across Connecticut. It was a great experience. We got to talk to a former first place national winner, and he taught us a lot about exam preparation, as it is a very, very crucial step in winning a plate at nationals. So we're very excited.
Okay, then next Saturday, November 4th, we have homecoming, or the junior senior dance, as we call it, in the gym at Ward. We're looking forward to celebrating our upperclassmen there.
As a senior at Ward, my favorite thing is to partake in the Friday dress-up days. The month of October, the seniors have been dressing up every Friday in different types of outfits. We've had Career Day, where we saw a lot of nurses, a lot of businesswomen, businessmen, awesome. We got to show our school spirit, and we also had Decades Day, which the teachers had a lot of fun seeing some students dress up as things that they wore to school. So that was pretty awesome. And this Friday is going to be Spirit Wear. So we're going to show up with our Ward Pride, which is very exciting, with our pep rally being on the same day.
All right, so last week, Wednesday, we had the class of 2025 hosted our Chipotle fundraiser. And we actually got support from Ward students, Ludlow students, and prep students. So that was awesome. And we raised almost $400. So that will all be going to the junior class at Ward.
Heading back over to our fall athletes topic, I am so excited to say that we have some qualifying FCAC and CIAC tournaments. Wishing all of our fall athletes good luck, and I can't wait to bring home some Ward pride. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Maddie Beggs.
Hi, I'm Samantha Mariquin.
So over at Walter Fitzgerald, there have been a lot of things happening. Today we went on a field trip to the Maritime Aquarium in Norwalk. It was for our marine science, biology, and planets oceans class. We were given the opportunity to pet stingrays, jellyfish, and even sand sharks. Not only did we learn a lot about animal habitats and behaviors, but we also were taught about the specific animal's history in the aquarium, like a seal that is older than our history and psychology teacher, Chelsea. And on Friday, we're taking a trip to the Sportsplex in Shelton for all math classes for who chooses to go. In mathematics, investigations open students' minds to the possibility of multiple approaches, multiple outcomes, and multiple solutions. With our mini golf assignment, it will be an open-ended investigation that will help students see the relevance of mathematics within their lives. By the students understanding the path of golf balls travel, the geometric shapes that make the holes, and a business model of a golf course, it will help the students make up their own designs for a course that's going to be around the school. And our students are preparing their final projects for their first units in our science classes. As we're wrapping up these units, putting together a project really helps display all of what we have learned and what we're taking away from the unit as a whole. For example, our environmental chemistry class is being tasked with creating models of nuclear power plants and showing the effects of radiation through them.
As a psychology class, we are currently collaborating with Fairfield Cares to focus on the topic of binge drinking in women, and we have received a very generous $700.50 grant, and we plan on making a PSA video for which we will be interviewing Sacred Heart students, and it will be hopefully out in early December. And our civic students are preparing to collaborate with the Luis Munoz Marin School's Talented and Gifted program to bring our gardening knowledge together as we prepare for the colder months and the survival of our plants. And for this project, we are both supported by the Aspetuck Land Trust. We are also starting our very first clubs, a yearbook club and activities club. The yearbook club will be working on our first yearbook at Walter Fitz, and our picture day is next week. And our activities club will be working on planning field trips, spirit weeks, and fun activities for the school. And on an ending note, on Halloween, we will be holding a costume contest for the school, which unfortunately I can't wear my inflatable dinosaur costume to. Hopefully staff will participate, and thank you. And we hope you have a lovely evening, and we look forward to seeing you next time.
Thank you. We'll open it to the board for questions. Mr. Peterson.
This is for Agatha. You mentioned, I think I missed a transition in one of the things you were talking about. You're talking about the class of 1973 Roger Ludlow High School reunion and somebody bringing back an original sign. But then you also transitioned into what I think you were talking about, a spiritware sale. You're not doing a spiritware of the 1973 Ludlow. Somebody should do that. I don't know why throwback spiritware is not a thing. I think that both high schools would clean up, and I would also say that in that era, Ludlow had the far better mascot of the Flying Tigers, and I say that as a Ward alum. You guys had a great. It's like put that on something and sell it.
I'm going to be honest with you. I think it's kind of unacceptable that we switched out. I mean, it should definitely be a campaign to bring it back. I agree.
Oh boy, that might start something. Anyone else? All right. Thank you for your contribution tonight and for being here. You're welcome to stay or whatever you need to do. So with the next item, the first quarter financial report. Public comment. For anybody in the public that would like to comment, 3 minutes on agenda items. Just feel free to come up, state your name and address. Okay. So with regard to the first quarter financial report, unfortunately, Ms. Laborious is unable to be with us tonight for personal reasons, and I would like to see if I can get a motion to postpone this item to a date certain of the next regular board meeting. Can I get a motion? Mrs. Vitale, can I get a second? Mr. Peterson? Okay, can we get a vote on that, please? Okay, that vote is unanimous of 7-0. So we will discuss that at the next board meeting. Keeping in the fame of switching things up, I mentioned Mrs. Jacobson is going to be joining us later virtually. I would like to just ask for unanimous board consent to move the next item in old business, the adoption of the resolution, to just after the superintendent's report. Any objection to that? Thank you. We will do that. So the next item on the agenda is the first reading of Curriculum American Sign Language 3. We'll invite our presenters up.
Good evening, everybody. James Evajancic, Chief Academic Officer, and I'm joined here tonight by Eileen Frankel, our District Coordinator of World Languages, and Tina Marsa, who is an ASL teacher here in District, for the presentation of the next course in the program sequence for American Sign Language. You may remember, just as history, the last 2 years we were before you in the fall to ask for this new program. We thank you for your support of that in ASL 1 and ASL 2. It continues to be a sought-after class, and thus we bring forward tonight ASL 3 as the next course in the sequence. Ms. Frankel will present in a moment. In your packets, just to direct you, I have given you the enrollments for the past 2 years as well as the course requests, if that is of interest to you. And with that, I will hand this over to Ms. Frankel to begin.
Good evening. My name is Eileen Frankel. I'm the World Language Coordinator in the district, grades 3 through 12, and I teach 2 Spanish classes at Fairfield Ludlow. I am here tonight to present American Sign Language Level 3, which will further enhance the world language program here in Fairfield and provide more opportunities as we continue to meet the needs of a wide range of students. I would like to begin by again introducing Tina Marsan, who last year was our ASL teacher at Ward and Walter Fitzgerald, and also our teacher of the deaf. She is currently teaching 5 classes at Fairfield Ward, 4 level 1s and 1 level 2. Liza Ehlers, who is not here with us tonight, is teaching 5 sections at Fairfield Ludlow, 4 sections of level 2, 1 section of level 1. New to the team is Jennifer Mazzone, who is teaching 2 level 1 courses at Fairfield Ludlow and 1 level 1 at Walter Fitzgerald. Thank you, Tina, for being here tonight, and thank you to the team for your work as we continue to develop our ASL program. Tell me how this works. Okay, thank you. The level 1 course fulfills the state world language requirement of 1 credit for high school graduation. And now, as we offer levels 2 and 3, students in ASL will be able to meet college requirements and will be eligible to obtain the seal of biliteracy upon graduation. We are currently assessing our students in March with the Avant stamp to measure their proficiency level and become eligible for the seal. Adding a 3rd year of American Sign Language into the World Language Program ties directly to the primary goal of the district to communicate effectively and to interact with cultural competence. The units of study are aligned to the 2015 World Readiness Standards and parallel the units of study in our other level 3 courses by maintaining engaging themes and essential questions as the vehicle to develop communicative skills and to dig deeper into deaf culture. Our learning expectations for all of our courses are aligned to the national standards and are reflective of Fairfield's mission, goals, and vision of a graduate, among them being to acquire an understanding and appreciation of other cultures, and to acknowledge, explore, and value the importance of diversity. Let me share with you now what some of the students have commented, and I have to confess, this is the hardest part of the presentation. The student perspectives are warm and fuzzy and really tell it all. So I would like to share them all, but I won't. So here, for a few reasons, I wanted to do a language all 4 years of high school, but I wasn't sure if ASL was gonna have a 2nd year. And since it does, ASL is probably gonna be my plan. And I also think ASL is something everyone should know. And before I knew this class existed, I planned on learning it anyway. I didn't take a language for most of middle school, and I thought it would be easier for me personally to take ASL rather than a spoken language. I am a selective mute, and I am more comfortable signing than speaking. I like the silent class. It's calm, and I find this class to be pretty stress-free while I'm still learning. A lot of my friends took ASL last year and absolutely loved it and enjoyed teaching me what they were learning. So I decided I wanted to take the class too. Because I wanted to learn ASL, to have a secret way to communicate with my sister. Two years ago, I was here on October 26th to launch our ASL program. Last year on October 25th, I was back to introduce level 2. Here I am again on October 24th. At each of the 2 presentations, the question came up about staffing positions. As we all know, there are national shortages. And from experience in world language, I can tell you there is a challenge, and ASL even more so. As more districts in the state are offering ASL as a world language program, there's much more competition. Yet with great pride, I have to say, we've been able to build a program with 3 qualified and caring teachers. A little bit more of the history related to the FTE. In 2001, I had proposed a 1.0 position to cover the 3 schools, Fairfield Ludlow, Fairfield Ward, and Walter Fitzgerald. However, interest was so high that we ultimately offered 8 sections over the 3 buildings, requiring a 1.6 FTE. Last year, I requested an additional 1.0, 0.6 of that going to Fairfield Ward to create the full-time position, and 0.4 going to Fairfield Ludlow. At that point, one of you even asked, would that be enough? And I said, yes. I was wrong. Again, I was wrong. Looking at the numbers, you will see that Fairfield Ludlow still needed to turn away a substantial number of interested students. And other incoming freshmen were encouraged not to request ASL as a freshman. Of the 193 students that we surveyed, 172 of them have recommended the class to peers and siblings. So based on the survey of current students, it appears that there would be 1 ASL class at Walter Fitzgerald, 2 level 2 classes at each of the high schools, and 1 level 3 at Ward, and 2 level 3s at Ludlow. The unknown number remains for level 1, whose numbers have surprised us for each of the last 2 years. For that reason, or for these reasons, I am asking for another 1.0 for the ASL program. I am also seeking $1,500 for resources because we do not have a textbook, and $2,500 for summer work to develop the implementation guide and create assessments. If I may, I'd like to leave you with one final student comment. I wanted to sign up for this class because I love learning new languages, and I have some friends who are partly deaf. Plus, ASL looks awesome, and I want to learn a language that's different. I think it's super cool. Again, thank you for your support.
Thank you for that presentation. I know the board has had a lot of interest in this over the years, so I will turn it over to the board for any questions on this. This is a first read, so Mrs. Vitale.
Thank you for the presentation. It's very exciting to see this class move forward, to have these students be able to have a third year. I am just concerned about the number of students that have had an interest in both 1 and 2 and have not been able to be enrolled. And I speak, I try to keep my personal experience out of this, but I have a son who's a junior now. He has Down syndrome. I was very excited when we offered this class because communication is a challenge for him. He has still not been able to be enrolled. So I see that as a missed opportunity because if he was enrolled the first year, he potentially could be on year 3 next year. So I'm concerned about the staffing in terms of the program as a whole, and the students that potentially are not having the opportunity, especially for those students who, receiving special education services. And I did ask Mr. Testani just for some more enrollment information in terms of those that requested but were not enrolled, just to see if there was any, hopefully not, higher percentage of kids that have special needs. That said, I will be supporting this because I think that it's a great program, and I think being able to offer all 3 years for those students that are interested is a wonderful thing that we should move forward with. But just really looking to build capacity at all 3 levels right now. So thank you for the presentation.
Mr. Peterson.
Yeah, hi, thank you. I echo everything that Ms. Vitale said about, I think this program is something that we should be very proud of as a district. I think it seems like it's been a runaway success, and something we can really tout. Kind of ties into my personnel considerations. Does it help that we have this kind of uptake in the system when it comes to recruitment? We're not launching. It's a big hurdle to get over when we first launched the program. Are we kind of getting a reputation now as a district that applies resources to this and has a high enrollment? Is that, do you think that may help us attract more staff?
Well, we haven't had a problem hiring the staff. I mean, the pool is not huge, but we were able to fulfill our needs. So I don't think that we would have a problem at this point. Again, year 1, when I remember I didn't tell you the truth because I was kind of worried about what we would get. Remember that? But we got people, right? We got two very qualified people. This year when we moved Tina to become the 1.0 teacher, ASL teacher at Ward. Again, it's 0.6. 0.6 is hard to hire, but we did it. So I do think we're developing a reputation in that sense as well.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I think last year when you were here, you may have talked about having a lead on somebody to hire, even at that point. Is there any chance that you have a lead on a fourth person?
Yeah, I think we have a couple of options out there. We do. We definitely do.
I'm a big supporter of this, so I wish you great luck in hiring.
Mrs. Kelly.
Also a huge supporter of the program, and I don't want to repeat anything other than to just say that I would hope come budget time, I'm not going to be sitting here during that time, but I would hope that there's a real conversation about beefing up this program, whether it's, as a full ad for budget purposes, or if the demand is that great and we think we could staff it, you'd argue that would come at the expense of another world language. So maybe it would be a wash as far as dollars are concerned. And that's something I'd really like to see explored come then.
Mrs. Maxon Cannelli.
Yeah, thank you for this. A couple of questions. So correct me if I'm wrong. I thought we had been advertising for this position right through the start of the school year, because I like checking the website for what's being out there, and I don't know why. I'm just curious. But I thought this was being advertised as well into the school year.
I think the position does remain open on the website. The recruitment does start when we have the okay to go ahead in the spring, usually, when Ms. Frankel and the building principals will begin interviewing.
All right, good to know. I have to be curious though about the where has there been a drop? Because I would think that with this many students taking this, it means something else out there we're no longer staffing for, and I was wondering where that drop has been.
I don't have those numbers with me right now. I'd have to compare the other languages over the last 2 years like I did here to see what the total numbers are in the other modern world languages versus these.
But no impression of terms of staff that has been either retired and hasn't been replaced, has been shifted to a different teaching assignment. I'd be interested in that information for the next meeting then. Thank you. And then looking ahead, just curious, obviously there's the possibility of an ASL 4. And this is just wondering, and I'm not pushing College Board or anything else, but is there something that, looking ahead, if we looked at, if there is an ASL 4 next year, is there something more beyond that? Is there anything like an opportunity for college credit sort of opportunity or anything like that? Does that exist?
I wouldn't say it might be beyond that. We have been exploring dual enrollment options for all of the world languages at this point, including ASL. So the proposal is on the table that we're working through at this point with the upcoming curriculum review for all of the world languages. An ASL 5 starting freshman year, kids wouldn't get to at that point, and I don't believe there is an AP for this.
And can you explain what the dual enrollment would involve?
So we're working with Sacred Heart on that with their Department of Modern Languages for Spanish, French, Latin, and ASL at this point. If Sacred Heart offers a similar course that our curriculum meets, they may allow us to enter into a memoranda in order to earn credit at the college level while taking the course at one of our high schools. And I should say that would be dual credit at this point.
And can that ever be fulfilled with, for example, an ASL 1 and 2 fulfilling a 1, or does it something that has to be within one school year?
It's generally one course to one course. We have to find the matching course at the university. Then the university has to take a look at our curriculum, the teacher's credentials, and have some sort of parity between them in order to offer it. So at this point, it's been course to course. I've not seen one. I've seen sequences, but not one that's like Spanish 1 and Spanish 2 counts for Spanish 100 at Sacred Heart.
Yeah, thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll see you at the next meeting. The next item on the agenda tonight, board leadership and the superintendent discussed this. And in the past, we've had a discussion on budget priorities. This is not in any means a deep dive at this point. It's really just an idea. If anyone has anything that they'd like to mention now, as everybody knows, several of you are leaving us. But there are still members of the board that will definitely be on the board in come budget season. But again, this is a chance if anybody has any high level ideas or things that you would like the super and the administration to look into. And also, obviously, you are all always welcome to email Mr. Testani and CC the chair. So I will open it up if anybody has anything that they'd like to bring up at this time. Ms. Guernsey.
Just quickly, I'm interested in pursuing some kind of commitment in either a program or FT. I'm not sure what it would look like, revolving around the issues of community justice and belonging. So I just want to start that conversation and hopefully talk to Mr. Testani about this more. Thanks.
Anybody else? Okay, moving on to the first read of, going back to Mrs. Vitale. No problem.
I'm sure it's probably going to be there, but just in terms of the ECC and furthering the discussion on the full day and what that might look like, and any curriculum that needs to be written if we are going to offer a a full day option, would want to, see that, potentially in December or before budget season, just for the public, and get some community feedback on that. And also, not super exciting, I asked some questions about crossing guards. We've heard just from the community, more children walking to school, just to make sure that now that the Board of Education, is overseeing that we're just meeting the need that's out there.
Okay. Mr. Testani, is there anything you'd like to ask of the board? Not to put you on the spot, but no need to.
Not at this time, but if anything comes up, please don't hesitate to send an email. And Mrs. Guernsey, I'd like to have a little more of a conversation regarding your request as well.
Okay. With that, we will now move on to the first read of policy 51444, recess, play-based learning, and discipline. Mrs. Maxon Kennelly.
Sure. So this is yet another policy driven by state statute changes. It's replacing, we played with the title, some existing language. If this looks familiar to you, yes, we have looked at this a few times in the past several years. We did not make a lot of changes to it. There is one that I have to just alert you to. We may need to amend at the table, but open to board discussion. It's on, it's page C, but it's probably easiest if you go to the red version, or red line version. We'd had some discussion in policy under B, play-based learning requirement for pre-kindergarten and kindergarten. And I put this out there most especially not just for the board, but also for if there are any staff paying attention. The one that had occupied quite a bit of discussion in policy was number 3. And policy committee had been interested in striking the word predominantly from pre-kindergarten and kindergarten. And now we went back and forth, and unfortunately, Mrs. Guernsey needs to check her notes. I'm checking my notes. We think that the draft we had approved did not have the word predominantly. In other words, be free from the use of mobile electronic devices, but not a big deal. We can amend this draft at the table next week, but that is something that we'd be looking to have a discussion about. Because while we recognize that there are plenty of electronics that children can use, most of our discussion was around the idea of, okay, but not for this. We want this free, and thus you'll notice that based on our discussion in the next section, which is for grades 1 through 5 inclusive, we had changed so that number 3 is now use of a mobile electronic devices shall be rare. I will say that Mrs. Jacobson had been keenly interested in a definition for rare, and we just could not quantify that. We were satisfied, Mrs. Guernsey and myself, with rare, that really communicated the intent of our discussion. But aside from those 2 point, or that 1 point in 2 different places, the rest of this was pretty straightforward. But if there are any questions now, happy to take them.
Mrs. Gerber.
Yeah, I just had a question. Yes, I'm looking at the redlined version, the second page, 2, under play-based learning requirements for pre-kindergarten through grade 5. So effective July 1st, 2024, the board directs the district administration to provide for play-based learning during the instructional time of each regular school day for all students in kindergarten and any preschool program operated by the board. I guess my question is this how much of a change is this from what kindergarten classrooms look like now? Is this, yeah, so thanks.
I could make up an answer, but I think it'd probably be better if Dr. Zavjanczyk gave a fact-based one.
So there is play happening in our preschool and kindergarten classes. This one is more, if you see the definitions, integrated within the curriculum. It provides equity across classrooms so that it's, I don't want to call it standardized because it's play, but that everybody is doing it. And it also provides training for teachers on what it looks like. So a lot of times play, for example, helps develop executive functioning skills in students, especially young students, how they negotiate between each other, how they set up, rules and practices, how they collaborate and so forth. And that doesn't just happen by happenstance. It happens through planning. It's not just a teacher saying, okay, go play unless it's free play. So there will need to be some work done on this in terms of professional development that we're starting this year, in terms of resource allocations of what materials they'll be using. That will be different than what is currently happening or was happening in the past.
Okay, so I guess my question is then just when you mentioned professional development, so this is something that you kind of have on the docket for moving forward for the coming school year to work on the professional development for this, just to make sure that it's a seamless transition and that there is, of course, equity across all the schools. And I guess I just was curious just in terms of like, are there any costs associated to this or just anything like that? That's just, because it seems like it could potentially have an impact, on a lot of kindergarten classes.
Yeah, there definitely will be some cost to this per classroom. We're doing sort of some of this in one of our elementary schools and working with all of the principals in the elementary schools moving forward on how to lead this sort of initiative and what it looks like in the classrooms. But it's definitely there's going to be some funding for hopefully the materials for 24-25.
Like what kind of materials?
So there's different activities, games, blocks, stations, furniture. There's a list of it. It comes as of right now. What we've looked at is, between 500 and 1,000 without giving a lot of details to it per classroom. But there's also a lot of things you can do that are free. For example, recyclable materials and constructing things out of stuff that's in the classroom that get implemented at a no cost.
But there could be that you said like 500 to 1,000 per kindergarten classroom.
Depending on the model we choose, yes.
Okay, and so I guess just so approval of this policy is potentially going to push things in a certain direction, I guess, just.
Yeah, I say that amount. It could be done, like I said, with no budget implications. We want to make sure that we're implementing this with the spirit of the legislation as well and doing it right, which does come with some costs associated with it. I know schools, I was just at a meeting at CES today about this very policy. There are schools that have implemented it with almost no costs based on what they currently have, how they're using it, and like I said, using materials that students can use for art and creative activities that are of no cost.
Thank you.
Mrs. Maxon Canelli.
And Dr. Zavjan, we didn't talk about this in policy, so I'm hoping for the next board meeting, because I just think it actually would be interesting for the public. We just dealt with the fact that it was legislatively required. But if you could bring to the next board meeting or include in the Friday packet, I don't know if the board cares, an example of a curriculum lesson, how it's currently being taught and how play-based learning will change that for kindergarten. I think that might really help our parents and the public to understand how this will be impactful and also hopefully how it's going to be a real positive change or a positive option within our curriculum.
Sure, we could do that.
Mrs. Vitale.
I mean, if you want to bring blocks too, that would be, you know,
There are definitely blocks involved in this.
I mean, cool blocks.
All right. Anybody else? Okay. And of course, as always, you can email Mrs. Maxon Canelli questions for the policy committee. Moving on to the approval of minutes. Recommended motion that the Board of Education approve the 10/10/2023 BOE regular meeting minutes. Can I get a motion, Mr. Peterson? Can I get a second, Mrs. Vitale? Any discussion? Okay, we'll take it to a vote. All in favor? Motion passes 8-0. Okay, Mr. Testani, Superintendent's report.
Thank you. Just a few items for tonight. It was touched upon in the student report, but I'd like to just acknowledge that Fairfield Ward High School has been named No Place for Hate School by the Anti-Defamation League for a second year. In order to earn this distinction, staff and students work to meet specific criteria, forming a committee and arranging anti-bias and anti-bullying activities throughout the school year. So congratulations to Fairfield Ward High School. For all parents out there, Fairfield Public Schools and our food service partner, Whitson's, want to hear from families, students, and staff. We have put out, on behalf of Whitson's, a school nutrition survey that is open through October 27th, so we have 3 more days. The link was shared via Parent Square and also can be found on the Fairfield Public School website and social media pages. Feedback from the survey will be used to improve dining services and ensure that students are having the best possible experience with school meals. So it's very important for parents, students, and staff to fill out the survey. We've made some adjustments based on feedback throughout last year, especially for vegetarian items and things like that I think that have been well received. So as much feedback as we can provide our food service partner, it will impact the menus at all our schools. A reminder for all parents, November 8th, the Fairfield Collaborative for Youth Mental Health will provide another seminar. It will be held at the Fairfield Regional Fire School starting at 6:30 p.m. And this month's topic will focus on eating disorders. Fairfield Ludlow High School, Salute to Veterans. The music department will present a concert on November 9th, 7:30 p.m. at the Ludlow Auditorium to honor all those who have served. I went last year. It was an excellent event. I encourage everyone to take the time on November 9th and spend a little time being entertained by our students. We continue to recognize all our principals for Fairfield National Principals Month. Check out our social media pages and website daily. We do a feature on each one of our principals each day. I think it's been a nice way just show our appreciation and our support for all the hard work of our school principals. Our Fairfield Public School art teachers will participate in community outreach initiative. 13 of our teachers will partake in a community outreach initiative to share their talent and passion for the arts, both inside and outside of the classroom via an exhibition at the Art Place Gallery in Fairfield. The exhibit will take place between November 13th through November 27th. And just a couple of updates on some new initiatives that we launched this year. Number one was Parent Square. It was to help improve two-way communication between our schools and our families. I've been monitoring the weekly correspondence that I receive on Sunday evenings, and I'm happy to report that over the last couple of weeks. Since we're only still in October, we're averaging over 3,000 communications weekly between our staff and our family. So that is an excellent number, especially this early on, to see that it's being used. And it's being used primarily by teachers, which is encouraging as well. Usually it's you'll start to see at the beginning that it's mostly administrators, but a lot of teachers. And one of our frequent flyers is Dr. Cavana over at Fairfield Ward, who corresponds frequently with his community. So it's good to see that's being utilized by everyone. And then in addition, we've been using and leveraging our data and assessment coordinator. It's been really helpful in going out to schools, meeting with school teams, looking and analyzing data from past assessments and now the first fall assessment on the NWEA assessment. I think it's been very positive to have folks actually have actionable data that they can use in order to make decisions when it comes to teaching and learning. So we're looking forward to the November 14th data presentation to the board as well. I think you'll be very pleased on this year's data presentation. And that concludes our superintendent's report for this week.
Mrs. Maxon Kennelly.
3 quick questions. I don't know if you actually know this, but with the food survey, is it also allowing opportunity for parents whose children have special dietary needs to give feedback that those needs are or are not being met, whether it's food allergies or gluten or vegetarian? I don't think we created the survey, so you may not know this, but
I don't know specifically, but I know that it's pretty inclusive of taking all the data. They really wanted to hear back from parents and students, especially on the menu items, especially for our older students. But they have been very receptive to the feedback and have made adjustments. In my 1 year being here, they've made some significant changes to meet the needs of specific cultures and also for students that do have dietary restrictions. So it's been a great partnership.
thank you. Second question, and I actually hadn't realized this, and I'm embarrassed that I didn't send this to you ahead of time because I was pulling up last meeting's material, and I realized we don't have the video game survey on as a second. Has that fallen away? Is that not being pursued any longer?
We've put that on the back burner for now.
Okay. And then the third question, and this is, I'm not, obviously, my children are now graduated from the system, so I'm not actively using Parent Square. So the only question I had about that, is it most of the communication our staff choosing to send out, or is a lot of it parents coming back? Basically, and what I'm trying to get at, Mr. Cavana aside, is if this is becoming very impactful on staff time and again, communication is great, but if this is encouraging a tremendous amount of additional communication that is requiring staff to respond to, is that something that we can be sensitive to, of getting a measure at some point?
Absolutely. We're hoping that this is not going to be a heavy lift, and we haven't heard anything. Mick McGarry, the president of the FEA, is here, but I'm sure if it becomes too much that we will be able to have to put some parameters around it. But it's not something that they need to respond to immediately. You can put some parameters on the app itself so that you're not getting notifications throughout the night, but you can attend to those when you get them. But I haven't heard anything that it's been an inconvenience or an extra burden on staff as of yet.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, and I'd just like to piggyback on that. I find that the Parent Square app is great for the messaging. I'm able to send a message to my student's teacher, and I feel like the response would come at the end of the day, so it doesn't seem like, at least in my case, but I do like the format, and I just wanted to compliment, at least on that from a parent perspective, me individually. I find that the messaging feature in the app is quite easy to use.
We also heard the other day some feedback from principals that they've used it to help schedule conferences coming up, and it was very nice. It was easy for staff and for parents to be able to sign up for conferences through the Parent Square platform. So that's been another positive piece of feedback that we've received.
Yes, Mrs. Vitale.
This isn't something you reported on, but just talking about Whitson's, how is the renovation at Walter Fitzgerald Kitchen coming along? I thought November was like the timeline.
It was the timeline. We've had some hiccups with permits being issued, and we're working through that. But so there has been a little bit of a standstill in progress with the construction due to hangups with permits being issued by the town.
Thank you.
Okay, so moving on, I'm just going to take a moment here. Mrs. Jacobson should be on the line, and Mrs. Jacobson, if you could hear us, could we get you off mute and do a mic check quick?
Good evening. Can you guys hear me?
Loud and clear. Thank you for joining us. Can you hear us still?
I certainly can. Good evening, everyone.
Okay, so we are going to go back to item number 6, old business, with regard to the adoption of the Board of Education resolution to the State Board of Education on utilization and racial balance. The motion that I will call for is that the Board of Education adopt the Board of Education resolution to the State Board of Education on elementary school utilization and racial balance. Could I get a motion, please? Mrs. Maxon-Canelli, seconded by Mrs. Vitale. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Testani really quick just to see if there's any updates with regards to communications with the state, and then we can go from there.
I did reach out to folks at the State Department of Education. They did acknowledge receipt of my email and that they were going to discuss internally and get back to me with any further information regarding possible either committee appearance or full board appearance. But so that was yesterday. So we'll just wait to see after they discuss internally what next steps will be for Fairfield Public Schools.
And just to confirm, if this is approved, then the items in the appendix will be attached and sent in, correct?
We've begun working to compile those in a comprehensive, booklet format that we can then attach a letter, the resolution, and then all the backup information that we can then present and send to the Commissioner of Education once that is all completed.
Okay, just to remind the board that we did consult our legal counsel on this and hope that we have created a resolution that is accurate and will be sent to the state. Any discussion on this? Mrs. Vitale.
Just as a follow-up to that, being that this has been reviewed by legal, it's not really open for amendments, that it's just that we are going to approve or not approve as written.
I would say that nothing is never open to amendments, but the recommendation of our legal counsel after consulting and helping us draft this, that we pass as written.
Thank you for that clarification.
Mrs. Maxon-Canelli.
Just one question regarding the appendix of documents, because at this point, so number 2, Board of Ed adopted racial imbalance plan dated August of 2022. How is it encapsulated in this or in something else? All of the steps that we have ever taken since we had the first racial imbalance plan, just in terms of capturing all of the things that we have done over the years. Because at this point, I don't recall, because as we would amend it, and language would change, then some of the steps we may have taken and have been through all of our voluntary measures that have been unsuccessful on all the data that accompanied that as well. And it could very well be that it was the decision of leadership that would not strengthen the case being made by this resolution, but just asking about that because this is all, very 2022, 23 focused. So just wondering about that other piece of all of this work.
And I believe Mrs. Guernsey or Mrs. Jacobson on the line can correct me if I'm wrong, but in consulting with our attorneys, we kept the focus of this on the work that we've done as of late that we had told the state board we were going to vote on. And we fully anticipate to have further conversations with the state board and likely present that information at that time.
I can chime in if you would like, Mr. Asa, quickly.
Please go ahead.
Hi, Mrs. McNally. If you'll recall, November 2nd, 2022, the presentation that was provided to the State Board of Education on that date did contain previous measures. So they do have a copy of that presentation from last year that did capture some of those previous efforts as well, but we can certainly, again, remind them of that with that previous presentation that is available on our website as well.
That sounds fine. It was more just not wanting that piece of the puzzle to be lost. And even though, when we take up a new measure or even an old measure, we always provide all the support documentation. So that was the only reason I was bringing that up. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else? Okay, we'll take it to the public. Any comments from the public? Seeing none, back to the board. May we have a vote? I will call for a vote with a raise of hands, and then we will ask Ms. Jacobson if she is in favor to say aye, or if I need to, we can go further. So all in favor? Ms. Jacobson?
Mrs. Jacobson votes aye.
Okay, that is a unanimous 9-0 vote. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay, committee and liaison reports. Who would like to go first? Mr. Peterson.
Hi, thanks. Last week, we sat in on the Board of Finance's capital planning workshop, capital planning workshop. We spoke at some length about our waterfall projects, our current ongoing air conditioning project, renovations to come. We did discuss one of the things that we will be providing them is updated information about cash flow on projects. But something else that came up that I thought was interesting, they asked a lot of questions, obviously, on the various challenges and things that are before the board right now, including ECC and redistricting issues, and proposed to Mrs. Jacobson that we have some kind of special meeting between the Board of Finance and the Board of Ed to talk about, give them a better context about all of the things that we have and all the dynamics that we're trying to weigh. In fact, Chairwoman Charlton at one point suggested that if we had had better communication about our special programming needs back in 2019, that the Mill Hill vote may have come out differently. Although we did remind her that that was part of our presentation at the time, I think going forward, better communication always helps us in the end. And since they have no liaison to our board, this may be a good format for us to get information to them.
Thank you, Mr. Peterson. Mrs. Gerber.
Just wanted to expand on that. This might be another time just for the future board, perhaps, and maybe the Board of Finance liaison to perhaps suggest that the Board of Finance actually does come up with a liaison to the Board of Education. And just that might help some of the communication issues if there is a point person on that board moving forward. If we can provide liaisons to other town bodies, I'm not sure why they can't provide liaisons to ours.
I don't disagree. I've made that point at Board of Finance meetings on multiple occasions, and if we'd be welcome to have somebody in the audience or just paying attention to our meetings at home.
Okay. Any other committee or liaison reports? Mrs. Maxon Kennelly.
I just wanted to let the board know about a couple of policies we're working through right now. Yes, we are finally tackling for the third time therapy dogs. We're hoping to have something come out of policy next meeting. We are also working on the admission policy, which will provide more direct clarity to our parents of incoming kindergartners of what we're doing for year one and then perhaps going forward from that. And then finally, we are beginning to address school calendar in terms of trying to come up with a policy and have also having a discussion of the administrative regulations with that as well. So that's something I'd been talking about back in June that we wanted to address. And so those are topics on our current agenda.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay. Oh, yes, Mrs. Gerber.
Just really quickly, PTA Council is having a candidate forum next Thursday, November 2nd, here at the Board of Ed offices from 6 to 7:30. This is a forum for just the Board of Education candidates.
Okay. All right, moving on, open board comment. Anyone? Mrs. Vitale.
I attended SEPTA's trunk and treat. And I just wanted to thank the special education staff for being there. Mr. Mancusi and the directors were there, as well as some of our service providers, and thank all the PTAs for the donations. It was a fun time, and the event is growing, and I know that many other school PTAs might be having similar events this week, so wishing everybody a happy Halloween.
Okay, we'll move on to public comment. Is there anybody in the public that would like to speak now? Seeing none, I will take a motion to adjourn. Mrs. Rotelli was quick with the hand and Mr. Peterson for the second. All in favor? Motion passes. Thank you, everybody.